If I could call this meeting to order, if the members would rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I want to thank the members for coming on such short notice, for being here. If the members could announce themselves, starting with Representative Devanza.
Representative Eric Devanzo from the 58th Legislative District, the finest district in the Commonwealth.
Representative Tim Twardzik from the 123rd in beautiful Schuylkill County, almost the best place in Pennsylvania.
Representative Rob Mercuri, District 28 in the northern parts of Allegheny County.
Representative Jamie Barton serving southern Schuylkill and northern Berks counties.
Good afternoon, friends. Representative Jonathan Fritz, Susquehanna and Wayne counties.
Representative Kristen Marcel, the 178th from the beautiful Bucks County.
Good afternoon, everyone. Representative Marty Causer. I represent the 67th Legislative District in McKean, Potter, and Cameron counties.
Representative Josh Kale, Beaver, Washington counties.
Representative Eric Nelson, Westmoreland County.
Torrin Ecker, represent parts of Adams and Cumberland County.
John Schlegel, representative of the 101st District in the heart of Lebanon County.
Tim O'Neill, Washington County.
Stephanie Shalaba, 12th District, parts of Butler County.
Cheryl Delosier, 88th District, Cumberland County.
50th District, Green, and parts of Washington County, where we invite you to come home and go big and have a ball. State Rep Bud Cook.
I can't top that. Tina Pickett, Wyoming and Bradford County.
Good afternoon. Jim Struzzi, 62nd Legislative District, Indiana County.
Park Went Lane, 7th Legislative District, Mercer County.
Thank you. And as we go, there will be representatives that come in and out. In fact, I see Chairman Representative Dunbar over there. Thank you for being here. We called this meeting because of what we're seeing coming out of the House Democratic Caucus, the energy agenda that we're seeing coming out of the House Ds, and we wanted to highlight how devastating that is. Pennsylvania has always been a leader in energy, and that leadership has always led us to leading in other fields, like manufacturing, like steel, and so on and so forth. Yet today, it seems as though our colleagues on the other side of the aisle are adopting a policy that's self-destructive for Pennsylvania, a policy where we are paying more and getting less, a policy that we are seeing uniformly hurt our Commonwealth's interests as it relates to jobs, as it relates to security, as it relates to environment. And we wanted to give an opportunity to the Commonwealth stakeholders that mean so much to this Commonwealth, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's working people, whether it's the energy industry themselves. So we wanted to give you guys a forum, and this morning there was a hearing, and Chairman Causer can talk a little more about that hearing, and we'll go there right into the testimony from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're absolutely right. We're seeing policies from the House Democrats that are a little bit bewildering, policies that I would characterize as make little sense, policies that take us backward, and it's one after another. And this morning was no different. A proposal, House Bill 170, was the topic of the public hearing that would effectually place a moratorium on natural gas drilling in the Commonwealth, which, is completely irresponsible. We need to be growing our energy industry, growing energy production, and there again we see another policy that would stifle any development. So it was a very imbalanced hearing. The chair did allow us to initially have one testifier and then acquiesced to let us have two testifiers. So I want to thank Robert Baer with the Building Trades Association, who did a great job testifying, and also David Callahan with the Marcellus Shale Coalition, who also did a great job at the hearing. To think that we're going to discuss a topic like that and not have input from stakeholders who are directly affected is mind-boggling. So I do want to thank them. But I want to thank the chairman for putting this hearing together, because it is an opportunity to hear from additional stakeholders on just the far-reaching implications of that particular legislation. So thank you, Chairman Kale, and I look forward to the testimony, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your leadership on these issues. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the testifiers. Today we have Jim Wentley, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Marcellus Shale Coalition. We have Michael Ford, who is the Secretary-Treasurer of the PA Building and Construction Trades Council, and David Taylor, the President and CEO of Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Mr. Wentley, if you could go first, and we'll go from there.
My name is Jim Welty, and I am the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Marcellus Shale Coalition. Dave Callahan does send his regrets. He got called away on a family emergency, so he's on the road back up to Bradford. So you're stuck with me. But the MSC is a statewide trade association representing the unconventional natural gas development industry in Pennsylvania. We have upstream, midstream, downstream members that are members of ours, as well as the service and supply chain that makes up, that does business with those members. 96 to 97% of the gas that's produced in Pennsylvania is produced by our members and transported by our members. We also have a number of building trades that are members of the Marcellus Shale Coalition. And these represent some of our most trusted and staunchest of allies in development, transportation, utilization of natural gas. And it's a pleasure to sit here with Mike in support of the industry. But I cannot stress enough the partnership that we have with the building trades across the state, which has led to them becoming members of the MSC. As you guys know, Pennsylvania is the second largest producer of natural gas in the country. We produced in 2022 7.4 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in 1 year. Let's put that in perspective. That is enough gas to heat 115 million homes for 1 entire year. It's enough gas to electrically power 70 million homes for more than 1 year. And it's enough gas to fuel the entire U.S. truck and bus fleet for 100 years through compressed natural gas. That's how much gas Pennsylvania produces in 1 year. But the benefits are realized by all Pennsylvanians for the development of natural gas. It's lower energy costs. It's cleaner air. It's cleaner environment. And it's economic progress. And what do I mean by that? Gas costs are down 56 to 76% since 2008 for consumers. Annual savings of up to $2,200 for family household incomes. And most importantly, and this is important to keep in mind, because we don't have access to the Northeast, the folks in the Northeast pay 81% more for electricity costs than we do here in Pennsylvania, because we produce the energy and use the energy right here. And they end up paying the burden for not being able to get the gas up to their area. I said cleaner air. Since 2005, VOCs are down 40%, NOx and SOx is down 81 and 93% respectively, and greenhouse gases from the electricity generation sector is down 40%, and at the same time, generation from natural gas went from 5% to 52% of our portfolio. And then the economic progress. So MSC just completed an economic study on the impact of natural gas development in Pennsylvania. 123,000 jobs supported in 2022, $41 billion in economic output, $24 billion in GDP, $12 billion in labor income with an average compensation of $97,000 per year, $6 billion in total federal and state taxes, and $6 billion in royalty payments. That's in 2022 alone. It's for these reasons that it was shocking earlier today that we did not have an invitation from the Majority Chairman, Greg Vitale, to testify on a bill that would basically ban the development of natural gas. If not for the good, staunch effort of Marty Kauser, Chairman Marty Kauser, the MSC would not have had a voice and the industry would not have had a voice. So I want to thank him for that, and we appreciate the opportunity to get the word out there. House Bill 170 is based off of a 2020 grand jury report which exhibited a jarring lack of understanding of how natural gas is developed and occurred, and a jarring lack of understanding of what the current statutory framework and regulatory framework under which we operate. The report recommendation was so egregious that former Governor Wolf's administration called it, quote, a disservice to the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, unquote, and that many aspects of it were, quote, factually and legally inaccurate. Yet that is what House Bill 170 is built off of. It's ostensibly designed to expand setbacks between unconventional natural gas wells and a particular feature or resource. So in reality, however, what 170 does is nothing but a backdoor ban on natural gas, unconventional gas development, as we testified earlier today. So if you go to page 2 on our testimony, look at the chart there. An overwhelming percentage of land in key producing counties would be off limits to new development. Allegheny, Beaver, Butler, Washington would have 99% of their acreage banned from development. Consider Lycoming County goes to 65% of that acreage banned, but that doesn't take into account that not all acreage is accessible. So whether you don't have the lease, whether the rock's not there, whether you don't have accessibility to that acreage, that still does not show the impact of what 170 would have in just Lycoming County alone. And then if you go to page 3, I believe it is, look at the map of Susquehanna County. By all intents and purposes, one of the most rural counties that we have, 96% of the acreage would be off limits in one of our most largest producing counties in the country, in the state. And quite frankly, one of the largest, most producing counties in the country. That is true. So we currently have some of the strongest setbacks in the nation of any producing gas state. We also have some of the strongest regulations under which we operate. And I think it's important to understand that it's not just setbacks that protect people and the environment, but it's the regulations and statutory framework under which we operate. So consider the Clean Streams Law, the Air Pollution Control Act, the Waste Management Act, Radiation Protection Act. Consider the fact that we need earth moving permits, air permits, waste permits, drilling permits. All these are the regulatory framework under which we operate to ensure that we're doing it in the right and effective manner. So in short, this is a draconian bill. It's going to take Pennsylvania back to the dark ages, literally. It would kill jobs, it would kill the economy, it would drive up energy prices, and it would take away property rights of Pennsylvanians. And probably most scary of all, it would threaten America's energy security and increase our reliance on foreign imports. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to testify today because we were invited here. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions after my fellow panelists complete their discussion.
All right, as also part of the B team, who was not on the opening roster today. So my name is Michael Ford. I'm with the State Building Trades. I'm the Secretary Treasurer. We have 130,000 members across the Commonwealth. We have 115 member unions that belong to us. And our message is simple: work. We care about work, and work done well and safely. And while I can appreciate an all of the above energy approach, we are not naive enough to think that you could just cut the cord and then go all solar and wind. We need baseload generation, and you can't get it anywhere else but through natural gas and the like, or nuclear energy. We could build a few more nuke plants if you want. But at the end of the day, our goal is work. And what we want to do is we want to provide careers for people across the Commonwealth. And to do so, we need good energy projects to build them on, so that we can fill up our Class A apprenticeship programs with young men and women who want to have a career in the building trades. Again, I'm sorry, I know our remarks were turned in earlier, and I'm sort of doing this on the fly, but we are here, we're committed to help, and we're committed to getting it done safely and on time. So,
Thank you.
I'm done. I'm pretty succinct.
That's perfect. Mr. Taylor.
Well, thanks very much. And I will join that club of trying to be succinct and getting directly to questions from the members. I have the great honor of representing the people who make things in Pennsylvania, and that manufacturing in Pennsylvania is $100 billion of value added every year. It's 565,000 jobs for Pennsylvanians on the plant floor, and that core manufacturing activity sustains millions of additional Pennsylvania jobs in supply chains, distribution networks, and vendors of industrial services. No matter what it is that you're making, manufacturers are consuming large amounts of energy in the course of taking raw materials and component parts and turning it into a finished good. In every way that matters, energy is life. When manufacturing adds the most value and has the strongest multiplier effect on job creation, when manufacturing offers the best wages and benefits in the marketplace, and when manufacturing depends on energy, affordable, available, reliable energy, having a pro-production agenda for domestic energy is just critical. And again, it's almost helpful, it's almost instructive, like to show us exactly what not to do, that the legislation that has been put forward is just, words fail, it's like suicidally insane. You know, it's an attempt essentially to overthrow our civilization. For these people who want to live without hydrocarbons and petrochemicals, show us how to do it. Show us how to do it, because everything that we are accustomed to in our modern civilization depends on those industrial inputs. All of our modern telecommunications and infrastructure and all these things, every last product, every last thing that we touch and handle and use and wear, all these things came from a factory. All these things were delivered by a truck. All these things were made with machines consuming large amounts of energy all the way down the line. And so to pretend somehow that we can live without these critical inputs, it's crazy. And especially when Pennsylvania has the opportunity to contribute to the national energy portfolio, to make America an energy superpower on the world stage, to supercharge our own domestic economy. These are all things that we should want. We should be enacting policies to help to bring that to pass, that the Marcellus Shale play, the discovery and development of the Marcellus Shale natural gas play is a world historic event, as important as opening the Panama Canal, as important as any other human achievement that you can name. And in fact, my friend Jim understated the contributions of Pennsylvania. Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania is the #1 natural gas producing county in America. It's not in Texas, it's not in Oklahoma, it's not in Louisiana, it's in northeastern Pennsylvania. And the idea that we can't get that natural gas to market in New York and New England is just a national disgrace that we can lament another time. But it leaves more natural gas for Pennsylvania for deployment inside the Commonwealth, and that there are untold trillions of cubic feet of natural gas recoverable that we can bring to the surface of the earth and deploy to benefit human beings. Obviously, the other side doesn't want that, but I'll tell you what, we sure do.
Thank you. And I'd also like to recognize that there are members online, and if you'd like to speak online, you can just raise your hand, and I would actually text my staff because I may not catch it, but Representative Gatos, Representative Mastello, and then we also had other members come while we were beginning, Chairman Rapp, Representative Zimmerman, Representative Rowe, Chairman Irvin, Representative Ledbetter, Representative Krupa, Representative Schern, Representative Flick. If I missed anybody, I do apologize. We're going to start questions. I'm going to start asking it with a couple, and we'll go from there. Mr. Taylor, help me understand a little. As far as energy costs in manufacturing, I firmly believe that you can't be pro-American manufacturing without being pro-natural gas, pro-extraction from Pennsylvania and beyond. Could you explain to us why energy is so important to the manufacturing process?
Well, sure. And again, as I said, no matter what a manufacturer is making, inevitably there's a multi-stage process where you're taking raw materials or component parts, and that you're applying force, you're applying some kind of chemical process to yield a finished good. And in the course of doing that, you're consuming large amounts of energy. And that for many manufacturers, energy is their #1 cost input. And that there are many manufacturing processes where it requires a very high temperature point that can't be reached through electrical means, and that this is why we have to have industrial furnaces, which then in turn require a coal or natural gas to reach that high temperature point.
So what would occur if Pennsylvania natural gas was pulled off the market and to manufacturing, to potential manufacturing coming here, and to the manufacturers that are already here?
Well, I mean, it would be catastrophic. And it would be for us to forfeit what should be our #1 economic strength and the most promising means by which we can make Pennsylvania a national leader again. The opportunity that presents itself through bringing that energy to the surface, being able to use it to benefit human beings, is something that's big enough to help us to overcome all the other dumb things that we do to ourselves.
So, in most instances, maybe all instances, it wouldn't be as though those goods aren't being made. Those goods would be made somewhere else.
Correct.
And that somewhere else would probably be China, Russia.
Well, it's entirely possible. And again, this is part of the short-sightedness, or I don't know, stupidity of the radical Greens. That yes, we can't live without these items, these things that make our modern civilization possible. And if you're going to essentially wage war on making those products in the place where it's done most efficiently with the least negative impact to the environment, then you're going to force production out to other places that have lower standards or no standards at all. And again, just to benchmark here, that the United States of America is the world's largest economy, and that we are the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases. So the U.S. is the #1 economy, world's largest. We emit 13% of global emissions, and that number of 13% is dropping. Communist China is the world's second largest economy, but they're the largest emitter of greenhouse gases at 30% of the global total, and their totals are increasing. And so again, the same product made in China is 3 to 4 times more carbon intensive than the same product made here in the U.S. And so it's bad environmental policy to force industrial production out of the U.S., and that's beyond all the reasons, of course, that we need to have industrial strength at home, that we need to have dynamism and prosperity and hard hat jobs for our working people so that they can apply their talents and make a good life for themselves and their families. So I can't imagine a more counterproductive policy than shutting down Pennsylvania energy production.
So not only are we killing jobs, and not only are we really destroying our consumers that are going to be paying more, from manufacturers to my grandmother who pays energy bills, but in the process, we're also hurting our environment on a global stage. Loses across the board. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Mr. Welty, we learned through your testimony this is, in fact, a de facto ban. And I think for the sake of education, that we have underfoot resources, and it's the same as a commodity we would have above ground, whether that would be apple tree or wheat or hay or red shale. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a mechanism in Pennsylvania to compensate these people that have been deprived of the right to harvest their own property?
So no, and that's one of the points, is that you're taking away property rights from every Pennsylvania citizen that has them.
Can you put your microphone on?
It's on.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not talking on it.
So and that's the crux of the point, is that we are taking property away from Pennsylvania landowners and taxpayers. That is incredibly and fundamentally wrong. Now, folks, I have to mention this, that I am beyond frustrated with the ultra-woke policies emanating from Philadelphia-based officials. Now, I'm honored to represent Susquehanna County, the #1 nat gas producing county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And you know what, my Susquehanna County residents, well, they're not telling them how to conduct their affairs in Philadelphia. No, they mind their own. And I'm sick and tired of Philly-based legislators that cater to overzealous environmentalists and ultra-woke interests interfering with business and industry and a way of life in my beautiful, bucolic, clean Susquehanna County. It is just fundamentally wrong. We were able to weather the Great Recession, and we have instead realized an amazing renaissance in Pennsylvania thanks to natural gas. And they are trying to hit the off switch. It is fundamentally wrong. And I'm proud to stand here and fight alongside of you. Thank you, Chairman Kale.
Chairman Pickett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is probably more of a statement than it is a question. Like Representative Fritz, I have also the distinct pleasure of living in and serving in some of the premier counties that are harvesting natural gas. And I can tell you it's been a real game changer for us. Amazingly so, not only in our local revenues and economy and so many other ways that I will mention, but we also know it's a game changer in Pennsylvania, a game changer in our country, and a game changer in the whole world, in fact, by the amount of product that we have in these regions. I can tell you what it has meant to us in jobs and economic development is absolutely something we haven't seen in generations, really, in a long time. So many educational facilities have set up, good educational facilities that are letting our young people start right out and learn quickly how to do these how to gather the skills that are needed in this industry and various supply industries that are involved. And they're able to stay in their general region near home if that's what they prefer to do. Their families are delighted with that, of course. And they can come out of those maybe 1 year to 18-month courses without a lot of debt and with a very good starting salary and a chance to grow up through the ranks. Recently, I had a rig tour. I hadn't done it in a while, and in talking with several of the workers, what I found when I would say, what do you like about being here? How long have you been here? And so forth. And one man told me the fact that he had, in 4 years' time, been able to grow up through the ranks in that company, and so quickly. He was just so thrilled with it, and I love to hear things like that. We also know that, in general, most of our counties up in the Northeast where I am, we are strong base, and it still is to a lot of degree, at the agricultural world. But this has allowed many of our agricultural producers to remain on those farms, to continue to produce, to continue to afford the things that they need, the machinery that they need, and the things that they need to be able to run those farms and continue to produce, and to keep that open space there. And it really has preserved a great deal of that. That's another side benefit out of all of this, and how much it helps those farmers and agricultural-based businesses, even agro-tourism, that needs that extra income in order to be able to make that work. The supplied-side businesses in our general area, they're amazing to me. I continually learn about how much this means to them, right down to the gentleman with the 3 outstanding stores throughout the area where he sells the best boots you could buy anywhere for the workers and all of the great heavy-duty clothing that they would need. And he is doing well, and he has lots of employees. I'm very happy for him. To the company that makes the diamond head drill heads for diamond-based drill heads for the companies that are doing the drilling. He's doing it right there in Bradford County. It's excellent, excellent business. Right, of course, electricity has been mentioned, but in my district, I have a big natural gas fired electric producing plant. It is producing a huge amount of electricity. I wish I was sitting here today could tell you the exact numbers. I wasn't prepared for that. I don't have them. But a lot of our school districts are, in fact, making sure that if they can get a service line of natural gas anywhere near them, they are signing up for this to be the best energy that they can use. And in our school districts, you can imagine what those electric and energy bills are to be able to pay for the heat, especially in these buildings. And I know when that electric plant was built, it was $1 billion investment in our area. We would never have seen something for $1 billion. And talk about what that meant to the trades and the folks that were there to be able to build that different site. So I can't say enough good about it. They're great community folks. They volunteer for anything and everything. If they can help the local fair setup, if they can help on any other nonprofit that's running a fundraiser or whatever, they're there to do the man work. They asked me one time, what's the best thing that we can do to help the community with these different events? And I said, manpower. I said, you have lots of good manpower. If you just went over there and spent half a day, it would mean so much, whether it's the fire company, whether it's some other group that's putting together a fundraiser for the betterment of everybody, not only their revenue, but for the entertainment and enjoyment of the citizens, and they do it on a regular basis. So I can't say enough about what they add to our communities. I'm just, for so many reasons, we could sit here, and, as you well know, three of you gentlemen, sit here and list hundreds of reasons why this is a very good thing, and we're here to support it. Thank you.
If I may, I just wanted to respond to that. I don't think many folks really appreciate the connection between energy production and agriculture, and in particular, that you need natural gas to create ammonia, and that you got to have ammonia to create ammonium nitrate, which is synthetic fertilizer. That if we didn't have synthetic fertilizer, 3 billion human beings would die by starvation. And in fact, Pennsylvania should be the home to an ammonia factory up there in the Northeast to use our dry gas for that purpose to support our farmers, because actually we import a lot of that stuff. We could make it here at home, and so it wouldn't just be more industrial production, it would also be U.S. food security. And the one other thing I just wanted to mention, and again, people I don't think understand this generally, that, for those of us who want Pennsylvania to be number one in the good things, one of the number one standings that Pennsylvania has is that we are the number one exporter of electricity in America. We power the grid. Pennsylvania exports as much electricity as California imports. And so, again, to be able to tap into this native energy source for the purpose of powering our economy, whether it's through industrial furnaces, whether it's through industrial inputs, whether it's through electricity generation, all these benefits are available, but they're only available if we allow production to continue.
Representative Marcel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your testimony with us. A little over 2 weeks ago, the Energy Information Administration released their winter fuels outlook, and in that they stated that families with access to natural gas would save 21% in home heating costs versus last year, which I think is very profound when you look at the fact that over half of Pennsylvania households use natural gas for their home heating. And so my question for you is, if natural gas is banned through this type of legislation or something similar to it, what will it mean to consumers across the state and the families and small businesses in my district specifically that rely on natural gas, whether it be for electricity, home heating, and a number of things? So if you could just share, because I think in Bucks County, a lot of my constituents care about their bills and how much money there is leaving their account for various things. So I think if you could speak to that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Representative, for the question. And I ended my testimony saying that if House Bill 170 were passed, it would send us back to the dark ages, and I meant that literally. When over 50% of the generation of electricity in Pennsylvania is produced by natural gas, you would have a significant problem. But as you stated, more than 56% of the households either receive their, have their heat from natural gas or propane. That all goes away. And the impacts would be devastating to families across the state, not to mention the cost of energy would just skyrocket. I talked about currently that we're 80% cheaper for electricity based on retail prices in Pennsylvania than they have up in Boston. And that's because they don't have that access to natural gas to generate their electricity and to heat their homes. It would be far higher than that, the impact of a natural gas ban in Pennsylvania on Pennsylvania families, and it would be devastating to communities. And think about hospitals that rely on the electricity. The cascading effect of that is unfathomable. And I literally said it would send it back to the dark ages because it would.
and I'll just editorialize a little bit. You know, there are a lot of folks who are living paycheck to paycheck. There are a lot of everyday folks that are just trying to make it to the end of the month. And for those folks, we should all want to make life more affordable, to generate more prosperity, more opportunity, more purchasing power for the dollars that they have. And that when you make energy more expensive, it makes everything more expensive. And it just, again, it sort of offends me that the other side would put up legislation that's just so high-handed and elitist, and just to not take into consideration at all the effect that it would have on those kinds of everyday folks that are just trying to make ends meet.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is going to start with Mr. Ford. You know, in your testimony, you mentioned this four-letter word for some, work, right? The importance of it, and coupling that with today's hearing, if you can touch on what you've seen for our energy workers in Pennsylvania. You know, when Governor Shapiro gave his initial remarks, people were pretty positive. He said Pennsylvania was going to compete. We were going to be open for business. Since his administration has taken over, 7 major projects have been canceled throughout the state, you know, ranging the Penn East, which was over $1 billion and spanned 6 counties. The Renovo project, over $1 billion in Clinton County. The York Energy Pump project, $2 billion. The U.S. Steel plant that was not able to move dirt for 2 years, the largest rolling steel mill in the nation would have been floated down to West Virginia and Arkansas. And then we most recently had the Homer City Power Plant announce closure. So the consequence of hearings like that were had today and what we're seeing, how does this impact your members and their families?
So, well, it hurts. It hurts all of us, and it's a trickle-down effect to the communities, because a lot of us have good jobs where we have family-sustaining wages and benefits, and we're able to take our wives and our kids out and do things in the community. But when you don't have jobs, you can't do that kind of stuff. So when you talk about, I'll use Western Pennsylvania as an example. We missed out on a hydrogen hub. I was with Senator Bartolotta last week, and we had a press conference about, you know, it really hurts when you move stuff down to West Virginia, where they don't have any kind of worker protections or anything like that, like we want and have here in Pennsylvania. So we fought very hard on all those projects to keep them here in Pennsylvania, or at least come to fruition. But unfortunately, we just don't know how to fix it. And the answer to your question was, it's a lot of hurt and pain on the workers.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of lost man hours worth of work.
Lots of hours, yeah.
And you mentioned the hydrogen hub. Mr. Welty, you had mentioned, you know, prior to Reggie, Pennsylvania, through natural competition, you know, we were exceeding the Paris Climate Accords on our emissions and our standards. Now that increased power generation is being produced in coal plants that are on the other side of Pennsylvania's border, but that air is coming across, can we touch on the actual environmental achievement? I mean, we've lost billions of dollars of work and private investment, but have we gained? And similar to the loss of this hydrogen hub, which was maybe going to also bring a low carbon steel, the nation's first, yet again, to Pennsylvania. Are we achieving the environmental gains? You know, what is the consequence of these types of closures?
Yeah, so the mere discussion of Reggie certainly drove a lot of investment out of Pennsylvania and drove that investment west of us to Ohio and West Virginia. And so the development that's occurring out there, whether it's coal or other, another mechanism, it's not happening here. That's the biggest loss, is the capital loss. But there's no doubt that what is always lost is the benefit to the environment. You heard me state the facts: 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions since 2005 in power gen in Pennsylvania alone. That is significant. You don't hear anybody talking about that because they don't want you to talk about that. So now we're going to take those opportunities and push them outside if we would enact Reggie. But again, the mere conversation about Reggie drives that investment out of Pennsylvania, drives those jobs out of Pennsylvania, and threatens the economic security of the Commonwealth.
I might also point out, it's not always the building of the plant, it's the build out of the project that goes with it, so you have a lot of ancillary projects. For instance, that hydrogen hub, there was $40 billion worth of economic development over the next 2 decades coming with that. Now I guess it's going to go to West Virginia. I'm not okay with that, and I know you guys aren't either. Again, I think we can all put our heads together and fix it. I'm just not sure how, but this is a good start.
And I'd just like to make one additional point. The situation in Homer City really bothers me a lot. The Homer City out there in Indiana County, it is a small town. And that power plant was one of the largest employers, maybe the largest employer, a big part of the local tax base. That facility was destroyed for no reason. And that there's no environmental gain, and that again, that you've taken life in a small town, you've taken those hundreds of working people, whether the Boilermakers or the electricians, and their families, you've unemployed them. And there was nothing wrong with that plant. Like, that plant was in compliance with every DEP and EPA standard. In fact, that was one of the facilities where the owners upgraded to be in compliance with the unconstitutional Obama Clean Power Plan. So, but again, you've got government moving the goalposts one more time. And again, it was one of those industrial furnaces like I was describing. Well, what happens when you throw the switch and turn it off? It cools. And when it cools, that furnace, it warps and it shatters and it's physically destroyed. You'd have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuild it, which of course now no one will do because of the rules that are in place about this investment environment. I mean, the folks at Homer City announced it ahead of time to say, look, with this new electricity tax, it's going to render us uncompetitive. We're not going to survive. We're going to throw the switch July 1. We had lead time. Governor Shapiro at any moment could have just withdrawn us and saved that facility, and he chose not to. And again, it's these kinds of consequences for everyday folks. I mean, what's going to happen to that school district that their largest employer was just shut down, destroyed, all those people unemployed for no reason? And it's the same with all of the other things, the Renovo plant that won't get built. What would that have meant for the community if that investment had come in, that our workers got those hours to build the facility, that the generation took place, that we had that much more juice in the grid, the local tax base that would have benefited from payments from that functioning generation station? All these things are lost. And when we look at the larger challenge of Pennsylvania, we talk about our demographic crisis. We talk about the ways in which that Pennsylvania is failing to keep up with the rest of the nation, and as a result becoming less significant, less influential. It all comes back to competitiveness, and it all comes back to the key question of, are we going to bring to bear these advantages that we have? Are we going to act like we want the investment to happen here or not? Because if we keep going the way we are, nothing's going to change, and we're going to continue to fall behind. We deserve better, and we can have better.
And Representative Nelson, you talked about the environment. And let me connect something you said to what Representative Marcel said. So third parties measure what's something called methane intensity, and that is basically how much is lost during the processing of development and processing of natural gas. Pennsylvania in the Marcellus region has the lowest methane intensity in the country of any play for natural gas. That is a good thing for the environment. And we have one of the lowest methane intensities in the world. So when you compare, for example, Russian-produced natural gas and Marcellus-produced natural gas, we are significantly doing it in a much cleaner and efficient fashion. So if we no longer can produce it here, that means they're going to be producing it somewhere else, whether it be in this country or elsewhere. And what that also means is we've got to bring it in, and that's what drives up the cost. So not only does it drive up the cost, but it also drives up the environmental footprint that natural gas production has. So we should be doing it here because we do it right. We do it the most effective and efficient way.
Chairman Rock.
Thank you, Chairman Kale. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. It seems like every session, and I've been here for several, that we are forced to just recycle and recycle these issues. Because I served on environmental resources and energy for 18 years with Representative Causer for many of those. And I know the one physician today brought up the fracking issue, which is an issue that between Marcellus and the conventional guys, I've seen charts, read, mounds of paper and information regarding fracking, regarding the setbacks, regarding chemicals going into the ground, and just, I think, every issue under the sun regarding the extraction of natural gas. And I applaud Representative Causer for bringing up the fact that we've been doing fracking for years and years in this state. And we live in a very clean area in Northwest PA. But I just want to commend you. Is there anything, what do you see going forward? Is it an educational, just another education session, educating members on these issues that were brought up today, like we've done every single session? And of course, it makes a big difference because here in the House, we're in the minority, we're not in the majority. And even though we've always had to deal for several years with a Democrat governor, we are definitely in a different situation. We're all thankful for the Senate. So what's your next steps in getting the information out to try to, as an industry, to combat the information that was told today?
Well, it starts with, thank you, Chairman Kale and this committee for allowing us to have the conversation, and for Representative Causer for allowing us to testify this morning, because we wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise. And you're right. The amount of misinformation and misunderstanding of this industry is significant. We've tried to continue to get that message out there and create that echo chamber. The fact that the good doctor was suggesting that fracking has only been around for 15 years and stuck to that point just shows how much ignorance is out there with respect to the industry. And mind you, for unconventional shale development, fracking is a 3 to 5 day completion process on a 40 to 50 year life of a well. A 3 to 5 day completion process for 40 to 50 years of producing gas. So it all gets characterized as fracking is bad, but quite frankly, fracking is unleashing American energy security, and that's what we're about. And we want to continue to do that. So I will offer to anybody on this committee, to anybody in this building, quite frankly, that has not been out to a well, that has not been out to an active well, an active fracking site, a production well, a drilling site, we will get you out there. We'll work with your staff to make sure that you can see how we do it and why we do it the cleanest way possible. American ingenuity, American technology is incredible. The Saudis and some of the Middle East countries tried to put us out of business in the early 2010, 2012 timeframe. They were trying to drive down the cost of producing natural gas in America to a point where it was not economically feasible. But because of the ingenuity and the technological achievements of American companies, we now are still producing gas where at one point it was $13 an MCF in 2008. We're still producing gas in an economically beneficial way at $1. So keep that in mind. Certainly, that is something to show you that our companies are doing it in a way that no other place in this world can do it. So let us know if you want to get out. If you have not been out, we will get you out onto a well site, a producing site, and a drilling site.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for being here today.
Whip O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Kell. And really, I think I want to follow up on some of what Chairman Rapp just kind of highlighted. But let's take it a step farther. So I'm not on the ERE committee, as you gentlemen probably are aware at this point. But I did watch the hearing this morning. And one of the conversations I had with Mr. Callahan after the fact was he made the comment to me there was just so much in the hearing that I don't even know where to begin to respond. So let's take an opportunity to respond to some of the allegations in the hearing. So some of the things we heard about in the hearing was the pit study. So if you could take, I'm gonna come up with a list here. So if you could take a couple of seconds to respond to all of these, the pit study and the adverse health effects that came out of the taxpayer-funded pit study. There was another researcher on there that talked about the peer-reviewed study statewide, even though I think it was leukemia or something like that she was studying. Earthworks showed a video of supposed black gas coming off of collection tanks, and the woman from Earthworks claimed that this was noxious gases being vented off of the tanks. And then finally, one of the things that I thought was quite interesting by my friend Lois, who's been in my office many a times, was actually the claim that fracking apparently causes Lyme disease as well. So some of these range from maybe a little plausible to a bit ridiculous. But if you could just take a few minutes and kind of respond to some of the things we heard this morning.
Sure, and thank you, Representative O'Neill. Let's start with the pit studies. And of the 3 studies that were conducted, two are heavily cited as proving that there is a problem with natural gas development. As we have always said, correlation does not equal causation. And what that means is when you draw a circle around something and say, oh, there's instances of this illness or this manifestation, then that circle that you're drawing around, that is to be blamed. But there's no correlation in pathways, meaning they have not studied air. They have studied air. They have studied water, but they don't talk about that because the air and water studies have shown that there is no causation to what is going on, particularly in southwestern PA. So there were 2 studies. There was an asthma study that claimed that there were increases in asthma within 1 mile radius of an unconventional well site. But actually, if you look at the data actually says otherwise. The data says that asthma rates are actually going down as production is going up. So the years that the data was taken, you look at the increase in production, asthma rates were actually going down. But that's not what you saw in terms of the headlines on the asthma study. The other study was the study that measured cancer instances. That was all developed out of the southwestern PA as well. And what I think Mr. Callahan was trying to say this morning in the limited time he had was, if you look at that study, all they looked at was the maternal birth address and then assumed that that person was living at that maternal birth address, never left that birth address. And that was the instance of there were an increase in leukemia cases that went from like 0.007 to 0.06, where they used the multiplier. And I know that's a little confusing, but what I'm suggesting is what it didn't do was track those people. Where were they going to school? Where were they going to work? Where were they during the day? It only looked at that mother's birth address. And we know that there's a uranium site down in southwestern PA, particularly near a particular school, but none of that was looked at in terms of how to measure what the impacts are. So, there's a lot of shortcomings in that study. What we look at are actual pathways, and the professor from Yale that spoke this morning was actually also a co-author of a study that actually looked at a groundwater pathway that 8 months earlier concluded there was no cause for concern and that there was no connection to damage to the groundwater from unconventional well development. So, there's a lot of misinformation, and it's how those studies are being spun that's a bit concerning. But when you dig into the data, it demonstrates that there's really nothing to be concerned about.
Great, well, thank you. One of the things that I didn't, I heard a lot about, obviously with the exception of David and Mr. Baer's testimony, I heard a lot about why the natural gas industry is bad. What I didn't hear was justification for the 2,500 foot in particular setback. which was the whole crux of the legislation, right? Do you have any idea where the 2,500 foot comes from?
No. They've been talking about 2,500-foot setback, other than the fact it came out of the grand jury report back in 2020.
And whose grand jury report was that?
It was Attorney General Shapiro's grand jury report.
Oh, okay. So in other words, this de facto ban, which, this is my home county, and, one of the things that I often tell people in Washington County is the entire economy is driven off of natural gas. It's certainly driven off of fossil fuels, because before natural gas, it was coal. So really, what we're really talking about here is then Attorney General, now Governor Shapiro, came up with a recommendation to shut the oil and gas industry down that now Representative Otten has jumped onto. So in other words, here in Pennsylvania, the Democrats' energy policy is absolutely zero natural gas production. I think we should let that sink in. It's not just the environmentalists like Representative Otten. It comes all the way from the top. Governor Shapiro himself issued a report supporting this natural gas ban, and we should all be concerned across the Commonwealth that the Democrats want to destroy our energy industry. Thank you.
Representative Delosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representing the 88th District, unlike many of the folks that spoke today, I don't have any drilling in a suburban district, but what I do have is many jobs that are associated with natural gas. The Trucking Association is based in my district, and so the trucking industry as a whole, as well as certainly many, many engineers. I have lots of engineers that I hear from that are related to this. So as has been said, there's a lot of jobs that come out of this that don't necessarily deal with the rigs themselves. The ability for us to recognize how expensive it is for our constituents. I get phone calls all the time that tell me that they sit in the dark at night when they are simply watching TV to cut down on their costs. A couple pennies, a couple dimes, a couple dollars off on their bill is important to them. With an increase of cost, that would be something that would hurt a lot of our constituencies. And to a little bit of what Tim just mentioned about the fact of zero gas in Pennsylvania. So my question is, bottom line, with going down that route of having zero gas in Pennsylvania, 2 points. One, can you talk about the importance of diversification of our energy portfolio within the state as a whole? How important it is to have not only wind and solar, and this is an entity, and the Democrats are trying to say, we need 100% renewables. That we need a diversification of our energy policy as well in the state of Pennsylvania. We need a little bit of everything, as well as the fact that you go 100% renewables, they can't make the solar panels and the wind turbines that they need to provide the wind and solar. So the ability for us to say we want 100% renewables, not recognizing we also need to have a diverse portfolio of energy as well as the supplies in order to even do those renewable energies. We can't provide them without gas. So zero gas means zero windmills, et cetera. So between the diversification as well as just the products, can you
I'll hit the products, if I may. Again, human flourishing is made possible by steel, cement, ammonia, and plastics. And all four of those have fossil fuel, hydrocarbon inputs. And so, what is a windmill? Okay, well, it's a steel tower. And how do you keep that steel tower upright? Well, you have it, encased in concrete, and the biggest, part of concrete is cement. And that you have a very large amount of machinery in the turbine to make the turbine work, and it's lubricated with petroleum, and on and on and on. But so the preferred energy sources upon which the other side wants our entire modern civilization to rely, that number one, you can't create any of that stuff without fossil fuel inputs, and that the yield from those energy sources is intermittent, which means that you need to have baseline generation, which means that you have to have another energy source that can be the, the workforce for that, which needs to be, natural gas or, in fact, you can have nuclear baseload. The thing is that nuclear baseload, you can't dial it up and dial it down. Nuclear baseload is a constant. And so to have, natural gas, which you can dial up or dial back depending on how much input you're getting from these other variable sources, like that's the match that will function. But to say that we should get rid of baseline energy production and only go with variable production is, I mean, it's just, you're against the laws of physics. And I don't know how to go past that to say that that policy is impossible, and it makes no sense. But again, that's where we are, and this is part of the, our job, and I think the job of all the, responsible lawmakers to talk about these fundamental truths that are inescapable. We can ignore these laws of physics, but we cannot annul them.
PJM, NERC, FERC, they've all released reports that really should scare us because we are retiring more electricity generation than we're replacing it with as demand continues to increase. So we're heading in the wrong direction when you have policies that shut down and make it and accelerate the shutting down of electricity generation. That's a bad scenario. So the warnings are out there that we can't replace what we're retiring, and we need to do more investment, and policies such as House Bill 170 are sending the wrong signal to the markets.
Thank you. Time and time again, when we're looking at the broad picture, many times you get tunnel vision with bills, and this bill is not only bad policy, but it doesn't take into consideration the entire grid, JPM, PJM, all of them that have the job of making sure that we all have safe, reliable service, and the capability of taking that 20,000-foot view, jobs, and how important it is to have that. So thank you very much.
Representative Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, in Schuylkill and Berks County, we don't have any nat gas. We wish we did. We've got coal. We've got some waste coal electric plants. We've got manufacturing, certainly. We've got a lot of agriculture. And we've also got homes and businesses that want low-cost and reliable energy as well. And certainly, we welcome careers in energy industry. And I guess I'll argue that this bill aside, we haven't embraced our energy potential here in Pennsylvania. And I'll ask you, and we've talked a little bit about national security, but I'd like to take it a step further and ask, is it a stretch? Is it wrong? For me, when we take a look at how we have demonized fossil fuels, and because of that, become more dependent on foreign energy, foreign oil, and allowed Iran to weaponize the price of oil to the extent that they actually caused the horror and the devastation that we've seen by Hamas to Israel. Is that a stretch? Is that something that we should hold ourselves accountable for here in the Commonwealth?
If I may, one thing leads to another. And, with the situation in Iran, yes, the high price for petroleum gives more revenue to the Ayatollahs who have, that for them, death to America, they when they say that, they actually mean it, as we have seen. We need to maximize domestic energy production, not just for the benefit of our own consumers, our own industry, although we should, that we also can defund those kinds of regimes that depend on the price of those commodities. And Vladimir Putin, I mean, his entire gangster government is funded by the export of coal and oil and natural gas, to the point that the Russians have built a domestic nuclear fleet to power their own citizenry with their homes and businesses, to leave more of those resources to sell overseas to bring cash back to fund their government. That when America maximizes domestic energy production and that we meet consumer demand, we lower global prices. We take money directly out of the bank accounts of those regimes. And again, any part of a successful U.S. foreign policy should be focused on that. And I think this is also why we have seen so much propaganda and agitation in the U.S. against domestic energy production, that the Russians aren't good at much, but they sure are good at espionage and active operations. And I don't doubt that they have played a role in all of this and continue to.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, we're sitting on a golden opportunity, and no one's been more vocal than this than Representative White, who has been leading the charge on liquefied natural gas facility in southeastern Pennsylvania. There's a great opportunity for labor, for the industry, and for our own energy security and the security of our allies. Because if we could site a liquefied natural gas facility, in the Philadelphia region, we could begin to stabilize some of that need for energy with our European allies. So it's an opportunity that if we get the policies right, it's a rising tide lifts all boats.
And we've actually met envoys from European countries for the purpose of discussing that. There is a great interest in having U.S. energy.
Thank you.
Representative Striegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our testifiers for being here today. Rarely is there ever a discussion that I have been involved in where we hear talk about alternative sources of energy. We hear about delivering energy in a cleaner, safer type of environment. We also talk about regulations. And I was just wondering, could you talk a little bit about how our regulations in the Commonwealth compare to our global competitors?
I will let Jim handle that.
So when we produce natural gas, I listed a number of the permits that we have to get. Our regulatory framework, while it's one of the most stringent in the country, which would mean it's one of the most stringent in the world, it also creates complexities for siting capital here because it takes a long time to get a permit in Pennsylvania. So consider the fact that it can take over a year to get a permit approved in Pennsylvania. That drives capital and opportunity out of the state. So our regulatory framework, while it's the most robust, it's also one of the slowest in the country. So take, for example, you compare, it takes a year to get a permit, say, in Pennsylvania. You can turn around and get a permit in a couple days and no more than a week in Texas. It does not take long to get a permit in West Virginia or Ohio. And the number of permits that are required here in Pennsylvania is second to none as well. So the regulatory framework is challenging. It drives capital elsewhere. But there is opportunity there. There are ways to streamline it. I think this caucus has been at the forefront of some of those bills that would streamline the permitting process, and we appreciate that. We hear the governor talk about streamlining the process. We hope that there's, we see something there. But that is a hurdle that we have here in Pennsylvania that a lot of the other shale plays do not have.
But talking about our global competitors, that the Russians extract a lot of their energy in the Arctic, and that in the course of doing that, they destroy very sensitive habitats for polar bears, for affecting the seal and whale population, those kinds of things. It's done with utter disregard for the quality of the environment, which is just, again, what makes it more infuriating that that it was in 2019 that it was a French flag tanker, but it was full of liquefied natural gas that was from Russia. and that, basically Boston environmentalists would rather pay Vladimir Putin to kill baby seals while plundering the Arctic than to allow a pipeline a couple of 100 miles from Susquehanna County. And also at the same time, just to not let the New Englanders off the hook here, that most of the homes in the New England states, that they're heated with either firewood stoves or home heating oil. Home heating oil has much heavier carbon emissions than clean burning natural gas. So, if Elizabeth Warren wants to outlaw a fuel source, she should make it home heating oil instead of natural gas.
Thank you very much for that thorough explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Scher.
I'm hiding here behind the second podium, gentlemen. Well, one of the advantages or disadvantages, I guess, of going last is pretty much everybody covers your questions. But I couldn't agree more. My question was going to be based on our state security, right, which certainly lends itself to the aging population, and that you already mentioned, where our workforce is not replacing our elderly and our retirees fast enough, as the Republicans always want to put away money for the rainy day fund, knowing that Pennsylvania is so friendly to the retirees without taxing pensions. And then that leads to the bigger picture where I was getting with the national security, and so much of the common sense eroding with our reserves being sold off or used up when we were able to secure so much of it at such a cheap rate at that time. And now we wait with bated breath to see what's going to happen, with the atrocities happening in Israel. So it sounds like you answered my question when all these groups speak out about the oil and gas industry, who is really funding these environmental groups. And I guess we could probably name a half a dozen, and you've hinted at several already.
Yes, and I would recommend, we need to have transparency. When international donors or institutions are funding foundations or funding policy groups that then are operating in the U.S., we need to know that. And depending on where it's coming from, it should probably be banned, especially if these are countries where there's not reciprocity, talking about closed societies where they don't have the kind of interplay that we have with our representative form of government. When you have tyrannies and monarchies giving their money to foundations that then go and fund groups that are agitating here in the U.S., we need to have an American-based conversation among Americans based on the First Amendment, and addressing these foreign influences, I think, is an important step with having an honest conversation.
Well, thank you. It certainly is amazing and mind-boggling at the same time that we have to even suggest about having an American-based conversation. But thank you for your steadfast dedication to this very important topic. You guys certainly have a lot of advocates and shared passion here at this panel up here, rooting for you. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Flick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for testifying. I represent Lycoming County and Union County, so one that has drilling and one does not, so a little unique there. And I'm on the Human Services Committee and the Children and Youth Committee. So what's that have to do with you guys being here? An awful lot, all right? So we talked with, I think we heard Representative Eric Nelson talk about that four-letter word, work. So I just want to mention a different four-letter word quite opposite, and that is play. And how's that come into effect with children and youth and human services? I would say in my district, if it was not for Act $13, let alone all the jobs that are present in Penn College with enrollment increasing because of our industry, because of your industry, if it wasn't for those Act $13, my kids would not be playing on new ball fields. My kids would not be playing on new tennis courts. They would not be playing in new parks, all because of our industry, the energy sector. Like I said, the Pennsylvania College of Technology would plummet. My kid that's going for welding would not be going for welding. It is much, much broader than people think. And the Democrats have to start thinking about children and youth. Not only will they have jobs in the future, but right now they won't have a park to go to. And I'm not exaggerating that at all. So overall, this bill would greatly diminish the quality of life of kids throughout the Commonwealth. So again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all three of you for being here.
All right. Anyone else? Other questions? Yes.
Not a question, but I do want to build off what the representative just said about the children and youth. We have a responsibility to help our children and youth grow into careers. Not everybody wants to go to a 4-year college or a 2-year college. Some people are destined for the trades. And that's why we push so hard to get responsible contracting ordinances, and we try to do that. That way, the workers that are on these jobs are from Pennsylvania, and they went through a Class A apprenticeship program, so that you can, if we're going to spend funds of a taxpayer funds, we should at least, ensure that they're going to people that actually know what they're doing when they're doing this, and they're not coming in from Ohio, West Virginia, or any other states. We already lose enough work to them. We don't need their workers coming here and taking jobs that should go to Pennsylvanians.
Representative Struzzi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today, for all you've done today. I was with my son hunting on Saturday in the fields behind our house, and I could see the Homer City generating station. Cold, nothing happening there, shut down. I was in Homer City on Saturday night for an event at the local fire company, and you can feel the loss. You really can. I meet with the school district, and they're not sure what they're going to be able to do, to highlight what you said earlier. And really, the impacts, not just on Indiana County, but on this Commonwealth are simply absurd. That we have put forth this kind of policy for the past 4 years, really, with the regional greenhouse gas initiative that I have been adamantly opposed to. And I think it's so very ironic that our colleagues from the other side of the aisle want to stand on the House floor and tout how they support trades. And they're doing all these things for trades when in reality they're pushing the jobs to other states. Not anecdotal, the Homer City jobs are gone. And I can see that the people have left the community. They're resilient. We're going to do the best we can, but they've already moved to Texas, where they welcome energy production, or West Virginia or Ohio. So I think, and I appreciate Chairman Kale, you having this hearing this afternoon, but we have to say enough's enough. I mean, how long are we going to continue to shoot ourselves in the foot until we kill the entire body? And that's what these kind of policies are doing. It's so ridiculous that we have the abundance of natural resources that we have here in Pennsylvania, and we continue to push policies that hurt these industries. So I don't really have a question, gentlemen, but I just, man, it really hurts, and it hurts me because I can see it in the faces of the people I represent, what these bad environmental policies, these aren't energy policies. These are extreme environmental policies that do nothing to help Pennsylvania, do nothing to help our country, really. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. I know it's late in the day. And gentlemen, thank you for the fight that we will continue to fight with you. Thank you.
Representative Struzzi, thank you for your leadership. I know there's probably been few that have been as vocal on energy production in Pennsylvania, and we appreciate that support from the fossil fuel development.
Thank you. And Representative Struzzi, you hit the nail on the head. These issues should not be partisan issues. Not that long ago, they were not partisan issues. Governor Rendell refused to push the state into RGGI. And he went through a process and decided that it's just not for Pennsylvania. And that's not the type of thing that we need here in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is different. We're not New York. We're not California. But the agenda that's being driven in the House Democrats right now is coming from places like that. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised to see that coming from their caucus, because I think one thing that we have seen over the course of the last 7 or 8 months is that their caucus just really isn't serious. They play political games, they go back and forth, but they're not really serious about actually getting anything done. And it's not surprising. But we have a governor now that every chance he gets on Twitter is out there saying how serious he is about getting stuff done, how competitive he is. And he's done a great job of, sharing things on Twitter and having press conferences. But where's he at? Where is he on energy policy? Mr. Ford, you mentioned, I don't know what needs to get done to get us forward, to get us to a place where we do get projects like the hydrogen hub. Well, since we've been in Reggie, the amount of investment that's gone to Ohio is staggering. The investment that was not here that went to Ohio is staggering. So step one, get out of Reggie. And step two, permitting reform. We talked about it here today. Step three, NOL reform, other tax reforms. This is stuff that we have been advocating. These are things that the governor has said that he supports. He said he supported them on the campaign trail. Where is the governor? Does he actually want to show up to work, or does he just want to play on Twitter? Does he just want to have another press conference? We need him to step up and be the adult on the Democrat side, because right now there aren't any adults when it comes to energy policy. But we're going to keep advocating for an energy policy that unleashes Pennsylvania energy. The Green New Deal has no place whatsoever in Pennsylvania, and that's exactly what this policy is. So over the course of the next number of weeks, we are going to be exploring more of these issues. Energy policy has always been a hot topic for us in this committee, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to make sure that we have a voice. And we're going to make sure that Pennsylvanians have a voice and that there's a future here in Pennsylvania for extraction, for manufacturing, so that we can have jobs. And Mr. Ford, so that your members can stay here in Pennsylvania, so that my kids can stay here in Pennsylvania. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about opportunity for family-sustaining jobs. So until then, this committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. I appreciate the time that we spend today, and I appreciate you guys all staying.